We will continue. I know you are full, kodwa awunibavusa ngengoma. Yini socialism? Wonke izandle sabantu. Akunamuntu, akuna ophethe umhlaba. Kaye yini socialism? Saba akunamuntu.
Follow it now to the terminal B. Power bank is with you.
Ayizozama. Comrades, lost and found again. 2 new power banks, 2 new ones were found in Terminal B. A black purse with cards and money, document and car keys. There's also other things like a sanitizer. Please, comrades, you can see it's so serious. The car keys in a black bag. It's a black purse. Once you find it, you must just act like a communist. One communist who got the money just brought the money here.
Money, yes. With me now.
2 power banks, brand new, were found in Terminal B. If you know about them, you must come forward. I'm left with 3 minutes. Comrades, I'm left with 3 minutes to continue with the session. Are you there, Western Cape? Are you there, Northern Cape? Northern Cape, are you there? A pair of black glasses. A pair of black glasses has also been found. Are you there, Mpumalanga? Ngathi nibabini nje. Are you there, Mpumalanga? Ya, nibathathu. Are you there, Limpopo? Limpopo, are you there? Gauteng, are you there? Free State, are you there? Yeah, now you can see, you can feel the difference. That the properly represented province is Free State. Eastern Cape, are you there? They are also properly represented. Only 2 provinces are properly represented. Others, bring in your delegates, comrades. You are left with a minute before I call to order this meeting. Comrades, can you settle? Can you settle, comrades? Please settle, comrades. YCL. YCL. Abekho. Babini. Yani babini. Empumalanga awungene ngengoma lapha. Siphakamisa nobhala ngengoma. Yo Solomon. Ya Solomon. Isotsha lomkhonto wesizwe wayebulala amabhulu ePapika. Isotsha lomkhonto wesizwe Ya Solomon. Yo. Nopal. Thank you, comrades.
Let me try.
Amandla. Amandla. Viva SACP, viva. Comrades, let me get into part 2. Thank you very much, Chair. I ended at the point when we were talking about the workplace. I should just say, comrades, quite clearly that perhaps if I wasn't heard, the SICP rejects xenophobia and xenophobic behavior in the strongest possible terms. Much as we say, we need also to listen what the people are saying, but we cannot be xenophobic because that's not the solution to the challenges that we are facing. I also do need to say, comrades, that when raising the issue of ESCOM, and its role in renewables, it is indeed there in government policy that ESCOM must play a role in renewables. Perhaps the point the political report was making is that that must be seen to be happen, so that that policy prescription gets translated into reality. And I was about, comrades, to say, as the SACP today, we are calling for an urgent. My face.
On the media.
Yeah, it's these user-unfriendly podiums, you know. Actually, I would like to motivate the SACP takes up a campaign on behalf of people not who are short, who are not so tall, because you must respect. Shouldn't say a person is short, not so tall. Because these podiums, they are designed, they are discriminatory by their very nature. And communists must fight all forms of discrimination and prejudices. Yes, Comrade Mandla in Mpumalanga is agreeing with me. And also we must call Comrade Gwede to order, who was referring to people as dwarfs. That's an attack on people who are not so tall. Thank you very much, Lopal. Thank you very much. Comrades, we also want to say, as this Central Committee today in front of you, that in the light of the economic crisis that we are talking about and all the related challenges, we are calling for an urgent alliance economic and energy summit in the next few weeks, in order to focus the attention of ourselves as a movement on how we deal with these very, very urgent challenges that we are facing. We are not saying this opportunistically. We do believe that we cannot have a situation where the alliance sits back and is unable to sit together to seek to address these pressing economic and energy issues. We hope that such a summit takes place before the COSATU Congress in September, so that at least there are still some major platforms post that alliance summit that can be able to deal with these matters. Comrades, having dealt also with the workplace as a site of struggle as per our South African road to socialism, the other matter that the political report focuses on is on the state of the trade union movement in the country and the challenges posed by that situation. According to the International Labour Organization, trade union density in South Africa is still relatively high by international standards, standing at 29% of the economically active population. However, the trade union movement is divided and highly fragmented, with 224 registered trade unions in South Africa, and many of them very small. Battered by retrenchments, labor brokering, and the fragmentation of the workplace, unions have been increasingly placed onto a defensive and inward-looking posture. Some have resorted to poaching membership from each other from a shrinking pool. Leadership factionalism rooted in access to financial interests related to union investment arms has been another chronic challenge. The NUMSA breakaway from COSATU and the subsequent launch of SAFTU, the South African Federation of Trade Unions, and the AMCU split from the National Union of Mine Workers have all further weakened the coherence of progressive trade unionism in South Africa. However, the NUMSA breakaway from COSATU did neither strengthen the union in membership terms, which weakened by about 50,000, nor does it contribute to strengthening platforms for common worker actions. For workers are stronger together as one. And we would like to repeat this, comrades, and we've been saying this as the SACP consistently. Government's reneging on its 3-year wage agreement with public sector unions and the neoliberal offensive in favor of wage suppression in the public sector have underlined the importance of rebuilding organized worker strength and unity. We have always said as the SACP, we are against the fact that the public service wage agreement was not honored by government. While the public sector is much more densely organized and dominated by progressive trade unions, we have a contradiction, comrades. We have a weak state at the same time. Strong trade union organization in the public service, but at the same time we have a weak state. Why? This is one of the discussions we must have at this Congress. Why is it that our public sector unions, while organizationally strong, seem unable to positively impact on building a strong developmental state. Does the fault lie primarily with the unions? Or is the essence of the problem located in the way in which the post-1994 public service has been restructured in a way that deprofessionalized public sector workers, along with the constant neoliberal argument that the public service is bloated? With the decline in working class industrial unions, this has further weakened the working class in workplaces. An extraordinary effort needs to be put in place to rebuild organizations of particularly the industrial working class and organizing in the more difficult hospitality services, agricultural sectors, as well as the forever elusive organization of domestic workers. No other political party can claim to have contributed towards building the progressive trade union movement in our country over our whole centenary of existence like the SACP. No political party comes anywhere near the SACP in terms of building the progressive trade union movement in this country. Therefore, we have a right to comment and also discuss the challenges facing the progressive trade union movement, given our own experience and commitment in building such a movement. One of the most consistent activities we have continued to do since 1994 has been joint political schools with virtually all of the COSATU affiliates. And these have greatly assisted in strengthening the trade union political education and increasing workers' political consciousness. However, comrades, over the last 5 years, these have declined, partly because of COVID-19, but also diminishing resources for political education, both inside the SACP and amongst the COSATU affiliates. The levels of political consciousness and awareness amongst workers have clearly been on the decline, even from amongst unionized workers. An important matter that we need to open a robust conversation and engagement with the trade union movement is that of the impact of technology on work, the future of work, and implications for trade union organization of workplaces today. Much as science, technology, and innovation are an integral part of modern society and development, its impact is largely shaped by who controls the uses and, of course, abuses of that technology. For the capitalist class, science, technology, innovation is largely a means of maximizing the exploitation of the working class and not technology in the service of humanity. Therefore, comrades, the task that we have, that this Congress needs to practicalize, we need to help to rebuild unity in action across the progressive trade union movement, encouraging the unionization of informal workers and the organized support of unions for workers in the informal sector. Building union community, unity in action, including through shop stewards, locals. This matter is one of the matters that we have set for detailed discussion by the Commission. On proletarian communities, in the struggle against white minority rule, comrades, proletarian communities, by this we mean our townships, our informal settlements, and rural villages, became the key sites of working class and popular power. From the late 1970s into the early 1990s, it was here that basic organs of popular power like street committees, self-defense units, people's education efforts, people's courts, civic organizations, and workers' locals were established in struggle. However, unlike Lenin's Petrograd of 1917, where the working class resided within marching distance of the Winter Palace, our proletarian communities were deliberately racially located on the distant periphery, far from the commanding heights of political and economic power. They were designed as dormitory townships, as the main sites for the social reproduction of racialized cheap labor, as daily migrancy increasingly replaced annual migrancy from Bantustans and rural labor reserves. Repressive military considerations were also deliberately factored in, with townships designed to allow for sealing off if the security forces wanted to act, with few points of entry and exit. These areas were often surrounded by the barrier of railway lines and encircling freeways. Almost the geography of apartheid is the same everywhere. The other day I was driving from Waterkloof in Pretoria to Mamelodi. The geography is the same. Waterkloof is a white suburb of the elite, formerly, and the moment you finish it, it's an old suburb of the white working class, and next to that is factories and workplaces, and then a railway line and the beginning of the township, almost countrywide. That's the geography that we actually have of our communities and under apartheid. Even at Tembisa, I'm sure, you will find a place like that anywhere in the country. Now, but our proletarian communities turned this exclusion into a weapon of struggle. General strike taking the form of township stayaways, boycotts of white shops, bus boycotts, townships became semi-liberated zones, ungovernable, at least ungovernable by the white minority regime and its puppets. But these rolling waves of semi-insurrectionary struggles over a decade and a half could not easily project their power directly into the commanding heights of the apartheid regime. White minority rule was made utterly unviable by the late 1980s, but it was not overthrown as such. Hence the stalemate in the balance of power that laid the basis for the negotiated transition. Now we are saying this, comrades, because today it is these localities that were in the forefront of the struggle against apartheid that today suffer from the multiple crises of social reproduction facing the working class and the poor. Although we should not over-romanticize popular township unity in the 1980s, but there was much greater coherence at that time. Post-1994, there's also been a significant expansion of the black middle strata. These strata include middle-ranking professionals in both the private and public sectors. Large numbers of this new middle strata have moved out of townships into relatively more affluent suburbs. That's the changing geography in these proletarian communities. At the upper end of this black middle strata, notably the middle-ranking professionals in the public and private sectors, aspirations and lifestyles might be oriented towards capitalist values and lifestyles. But even here, middle-class status is often highly precarious under the weight of the cost of suburban homes, newly acquired cars, and aspirational education for children, along with what is sometimes called the black tax. Angiyithandi ke lento ye-black tax. But intsha namhlanje YCL, you talk about the black tax if you are supporting your families because you happen to be working and they are not working. Kithina, this was a given, a must. We didn't regard it as a tax, we regarded it as a duty. That if you have finished school, if you're lucky you have passed that university, you are actually going to be supporting your siblings and even looking after your mom and your father. In short, what we are saying is that notwithstanding all these problems or these changes that have taken place, these proletarian communities still remain largely the same as they were under apartheid. And in some respects, the situation has gotten worse. But within these townships also, or proletarian communities, there is a small, what we can call petty bourgeoisie sector that has been there before and is also continuing to emerge. What are these? These are your traditional township spaza shop owners, who of course today are being squeezed between one hand the new shopping malls and on the other hand foreign nationals using extended family and wider global networks to undercut local traders. This displacement of local petty business people is often at the root of the criminal xenophobic attacks that we must condemn. However, there are also contradictory forces at play. The political report, comrades, is doing this in-depth analysis so that we understand the challenge of organizing in what we refer to as the proletarian communities. What are these contradictory forces at play? Poorer communities that are dependent on the convenience of lower prices, inclined to support the presence of foreign national township stores. If you talk to an ordinary township resident or somewhere in the rural area, will actually say it's very convenient that we get cheap local products, whether it's bread or what, from the Somali or Pakistani owned shops. That's a fact. I remember in SABC radio one day, listening to a phone-in program on the planned visit by the Dalai Lama, invited by our late Bishop Desmond Tutu. This one caller says, Msasaz, I don't know anything about the Dalai Lama. I don't know who the Dalai Lama is. In fact, I don't care. But if the coming of the Dalai Lama is going to result in us not having access to Chinese Hong Kong, let him not come. We live on the Chinese Hong Kong. It's cheap. We are able to clothe our kids. And also we are able to buy that Hong Kong and go and sell it in the township. If the Hong Kong is going to disappear, thank you very much, Dalai Lama. We don't want you in South Africa. It's the same contradictory patterns that are happening in the townships. You will find that normally other spaza shops are more expensive than spaza shops that may be run by Pakistani or Somali owners. And communities who are poor will tend to go to where things are cheaper. So these are the kinds of contradictions that are taking place. Another major petty bourgeois sector, comrades, it's the taxi owners in our proletarian communities. And also this is characterized by sharp contradictions and volatility. Taxi owners range from those owning large fleets operating on key routes and typically exerting high levels of exploitation over their drivers, through to owner-operators driving their own vehicles. There are an estimated 120,000 minibuses operating throughout South Africa, providing nearly 70% of all public transport trips. I know bakhona kwakhona apha abanye. No taxi owner, there is nothing wrong with that. I know of communists who are running taxis themselves. That's part of the realities in these proletarian communities of ours. The minibus taxi sector is, on the one hand, comrades, a remarkable story of self-driven black economic empowerment. Bootstraps up entrepreneurship with minimal government support. It's amazing. Real entrepreneurial. But on the other hand, in many respects, it acts as a major impediment to effective transformation of public transport. Publicly planned, effectively regulated and subsidized, as happens in developed capitalist countries, intermodal commuter transport operating particularly at the metro level, involving trains, buses, minibuses, and even non-motorized transport like bicycle, is desperately needed in our country. Mass transit with long commutes in minibuses from distant townships to place of work and study is neither safe nor economically sensible. Fuel costs, lost time in congested routes, and commuters. Overtrading, here is another big problem that leads to violence. The taxi routes in South Africa are overtraded. Because the allocation of routes are controlled in a manner that few people make decisions. The more taxes come in, the more the local association gets tax from that. But by allowing more taxes to come in, the profits decline. And it's an amazing industry where money is collected every day after hours. The driver must go to the owner, ayoshiya imali, and said, cash up, yes. I knew the communists know about all this, even the lingo. And said, I've done 24 trips today, when in fact he had done possibly 26. Rushing and driving like mad, so that there are 2 or 3 trips through which the driver can get change. Good communists must know about these realities, because this is happening, Comrade Benson, Kwalanga, eGugulethu, eKhayelitsha. That is the reality of the proletarian communities. But comrades, it's also important that to know also that part of the problems, by the way, in the transport sector in our proletarian communities, there's been huge destruction of rail infrastructure. In some places now, there are houses that are being built right inside, next to railway tracks, which is part, by the way, of the social decay, comrades, that we are talking about. In other words, our proletarian communities are just melting pots of living spaces that are characterized by these huge contradictions and inequalities that are taking place. But somehow they function. Ikasi life is there, or in rural areas. Why are we raising all this? We are raising all this, comrades, because I want to ask the question that this Congress must answer. Where are our branches of the SACP in all this, in our proletarian communities? Where are the ANC branches? What are they doing? Are we taking up all the multiplicity of these issues? Comrades know, those who have visited Cuba, for instance, if you go to a locality, you talk to a district secretary of the Communist Party of Cuba, will tell you in that district everything that is going on. The economy of the district, how many people are ill, not well, suffering from what kinds of diseases, how many doctors are there, What developments are planned? Where is the Committee for the Defense of the Revolution? Who are the members of that? Ideally, that's what communist organization should be about, that our own branches must be located in communities in which they are and in which they work. It can't be that you ask a branch secretary of a Communist Party, why is there a protest in that section of the township? Possibly doesn't know that there is even a protest. Really? Is there a protest? Yes. As I was going past there were people there maybe burning tires and so on. Doesn't know. Completely disconnected. Is it wonder, comrades, that therefore we are facing this contradiction that the ANC and SACP branches are located in these proletarian communities, but they are losing touch with what is going on in these communities? The key question for this Congress, how do we reroute our branches in these proletarian communities? The state. Comrades, let me try very briefly to raise something here. Some of the things I will raise them provocatively. I have a license to do that. If you're General Secretary, you have a license. And if you are presenting also, you have a license. You know, comrades, we've done ourselves a big disservice as this SACP. Maybe as this Central Committee, we must blame ourselves as well. We have only spoken and analyzed the state, not even analyzed. We have largely spoken about the state when we are talking about state power, and also what we are referring to as state power, by the way, is not even state power, is electoral contest. City-state power. We've done ourselves a big disservice. We have ended up not even analyzing the kind of democratic state that we've built since 1994. What kind of a state do we have? We haven't analyzed that because we have tended to equate the state to state power and electoral contestation. We want to force this Congress, these next 2 to 3 days, to discuss the kind of state that we have built in South Africa, the challenges that we have, and what is to be done. Now, here are some of the key features, summarized, stated in a bit more detail in the report. The first feature of the state that we've built since, well, first of all, let's make this clear. The ANC-led government has made lots of progress in terms of transforming the apartheid state that we inherited. We've done away with racially based legislation. We've done away with racially based schools, racially based facilities. We've done away with all racial laws in South Africa. It's a huge, huge achievement that we've made under the African National Congress. And we must defend this, and we must deepen these kinds of transformation in changing the character of the state that we inherited. But there are certain features of the state as well that are problematic. Firstly, comrades, with the adoption of gear and attempt at privatizing the SOEs led to actually the privatization of a lot of services that in the past were provided by the state. Our municipalities basically just have no capacity whatsoever to carry out any public works in their localities. There is hardly any engineering capacity, because the logic of GEAR was that we will have to outsource these services to an emergent group of black empowered South Africans. That was one of the effect of the model of black economic empowerment that we have. Many state-owned entities outsourced the capacity to be able to provide services. Not even giving those services to the townships. As an alliance, by the way, we have got a wonderful resolution of set-asides for SMEs and cooperatives. Certain services, we say, must be set aside to be given exclusively to cooperatives and small, medium enterprises. We are not doing that. To cut grass in parts of a township, you give out a tender. The worst part of it, comrades, school feeding should be a set aside for cooperatives in our proletarian communities. Abakwazi ukupheka omama no baba are the ones who should be feeding the school kids in their own wards. But we give this to one person as a tender who is a business person who will then pocket an amount equal to 2 slices of bread but feed the kids only half a slice of bread each, instead of the 2 slices of bread that they are being paid for. We have built a tendered state, and that is what we need to transform. What are we to do in order to change that? We are talking about the need to build township, rural village infrastructure that is climate resilient. How are we going to do that if we've got a tendered state that is reliant almost exclusively? Even the building of houses, comrades, is tenders. Everything is tendered. We've built a tender state. That is what this political report is placing before you. As a result, the state also then has become a site for huge battles by tenderers who are vying for services in this particular state. Is it by mistake that now we've got hired assassins to kill each other inside our own structures as a movement today, fighting over these resources? We've done an analysis as the SACP. We are not angels, by the way, as the party. When we analyze the ANC itself, Mamkis, admits to this. Our analysis is that the core of factionalism in the movement lies in this, in class terms, if we give it a Marxist-Leninist analyst. You get a group of people who come together with an intention to accumulate. These people sometimes who come together include thugs in our localities, who see getting elected into a BEC of the ANC as a better way to accumulate than to sell drugs in some instances, or they do both. They come together. The first port of call, is to capture the BGM of the ANC and get themselves elected onto the BEC. Once they do that, they link with leaders at regional level, and then we have got Nzimande branches who is a regional secretary, right from the region and throughout the region. And the next step after that is to then capture the local municipality budget for purposes of distributing patronage and getting tenders, and that becomes the heart of factionalism in our movement. What we call a bureaucratic petty bourgeoisie, which is dependent on controlling the political structure in order to capture the municipal budget and be able to accumulate. In class terms, that's what we have. That is why when we warn about this in the Communist Party, unless we are conscious that we don't do this, we're going to go the same route. Now, that is now the character of the local state. It is that the people are rejecting in the local government elections last year. Because now what ends up happening is that our structures, how different are our VD branches, become inward looking. If a BGM is sitting, it's not about the state of cleanliness in the township that is being discussed. It's about who is going to be nominated for the next local government elections, or there is a by-election, who is actually going to be nominated, so that we actually continue to control the local municipal resources. That's the kind of a state, comrades, that we are building at local level. You just have to read the latest Auditor General's report to just understand. 50% of our municipalities are bankrupt. Some of them fine, they are poor, there is no tax base. But others is actually because of these fights that also interface with factionalism. You have then, comrades, to discuss what kind of state do we want to build? This developmental state that we are talking about, at local level and at national level. There are certain difficult questions that we need to ask, by the way. Although some of them, I don't know whether we can still do anything about. Do we really need the provincial level of government in this country? Do we really need it? Do we really need these two-tier municipalities? Why do you have a local municipality and a district municipality? For what? To multiply the number of councillors? And in terms of services, there is overlap, there is conflict, there is all that. These are the things that this party congress should be discussing and then saying what is to be done. Let me end there on the state and then move just towards the few critical issues, Chair, that I just want to touch briefly. Then I hopefully close within the next 20 minutes or so, hopefully. The electoral question. The electoral question. One of the major contributions of Marxism to our understanding of society, of history, of politics, is to grasp the interaction of contradictory elements within a single system. Society is made up of contradictions. And we have at all times to grasp and understand that. History does not march in a straight line, comrades. The working class is not on its own playing the game it wants to play. It's being countered by other class forces. Nor is the party out on its own simply to meet at Congress, take resolutions, and then those resolutions will happen automatically just because we have taken them ourselves. The party needs to develop a clear program for active class struggle. But this does not mean, comrades, that Such a program can be logged into our smartphones like a Google Maps direction, where we can relax as the party. We're driving this revolution. The voice tells us at the next intersection, 10 left. 10 left. And then left again. 10 right. Your destination is on the right. It's not like that. The class struggle is not like that. Now you have arrived at your destination. Socialism, the name of the destination. History and the class struggle are not like that. Some are saying, comrades, let's open these questions now so that you go and discuss. The political report in this instance is to assist the Congress to discuss this. Akasikhulume nje maqabane. Ngeinto eziserious. Some are saying that in 2024, the SACP should contest elections on its own, separate from the ANC. After the elections, the party can then, hopefully, form a coalition with the ANC, enabling the ANC to cross the 50% mark. And if the ANC fails to do so, to get 50%, as some are predicting, then the party will come with its bid to patch up, and then we have an alliance majority. Some comrades are saying that. I was in a funeral of a childhood friend of mine. We knew each other from 1972, Kadambuza in Pietermaritzburg, ekhaya. The pastor who was burying is a branch secretary of the SACP. Aze ngibona ikomane siminela ziBhayibheli ngalo lahlo. Mvelase? Yeah. Uyashumayela. And he uses the opportunity ukuthi he sees me there. I'm not there as general secretary of the party. Ngizongcwaba ufriend wami. He says, yeah. It's time, GS, you allow us to contest elections. So that also we help the ANC. If it doesn't get a majority, we will make up. Now, there's a problem, obviously, with these comrades. It means the SACP is deciding to contest elections in order to get only 10%. Or the SACP knows that it's unlikely to get more than 10%, just as to patch and work with the ANC. Who says, by the way, the ANC would like to enter into a coalition with the SACP? Who says that? It's not a Google map, 10 left. Your destination is on your right. This is a class struggle. The ANC in a particular district may say, no, in KZN, we would rather go into a coalition with the IFP. Because on this and that issue, we see it the same. These communists are a nuisance. They ask too many questions. How do you contest an election when you want to get 10%? And to actually cover up? I'm not arguing for anything, comrades. The